What is going on, everybody? Hope everybody's enjoying their Friday evening, no matter where you are. I figured if I was going to go and get it this week and get someone to come on my channel before the divisional playoff game against the Green Bay Packers, I had to get one of the best out there. So, Jesse, thanks you for coming. Thank you for coming on. You're a busy man, so it's hard to track you down, but I appreciate you giving me your time.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate you asking me to come on and far too kind. There are many, many better than I, but I'm happy to do this with you. I've been on here once before. I had an absolute blast. And the last time I was on, your your getup wasn't near as cool as it is now. You've got that upgraded mic. You got that dope little logo. You got the nice intro. You got everything, man. You just upgraded premium style on me.
I'm trying. I think part of with YouTube, or with any content is if you kind of invest into it, it kind of helps you. And
Yeah,
at least for me, like if it wasn't something that had any traction, I wouldn't probably spend any money on it. But I do okay. I'm not like the top tier YouTube channels, but that's okay. But I figured if you're gonna put the money into it, at least have a little bit of traction. And that's kind of what I waited for once I got to a certain point. So and
absolutely.
I think it's almost a thank you to the people that support you. Like, hey, listen, I respect and like everything that you guys give to me. So in turn, I'm going to kind of try to make things look and sound as best as possible on the budget that I'm on. So
Right. No, I think that's actually a really good point, and that's kind of what I've done over time is I've tried to upgrade, a few things here, upgrade a mic or lighting or camera or whatever. Because it's you want to put out a quality product. Whether it's a full-time gig or not, you don't want to look like a scrub out here.
right, especially when there's so many options too, and people are gonna be like, yeah. That's why I was telling you off camera about my lagging issue last night with being on Rob's channel and the my mic being too close to my face. So like I was so depressed watching the playback of that stream. So I'm like, okay, I resetted my internet. I turned the 5G on my computer on. So hopefully we'll have a little better outcome. So
Well, that's just it too, right? Like, especially when you do spend the money and then it just doesn't work. You're like, wow, my gosh, like I spent all this money and it sounds like crap or it looked like crap or whatever. I feel it.
so I figure we just get right into it, kind of buzzed along on these topics because everybody's, got lives and stuff. So I don't want to, make this longer than it needs to be. So I figured we get right into what I thought was we a lot of people have covered the Cowboys game and everything that happened. So instead of asking you what you thought of the Cowboys game, I would ask you what lessons that we've learned that what the things that transpired during that game, the fast start, the crazy scary finish. You think the Niners can learn any lessons and apply them to the game that they're going to play tomorrow in one of the most, uh, what do you call famous historic places that you could ever play a football game?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's think about it, right? You're closer to my age.
Hmm.
We saw these rivalries play out in the 90s, right? We saw the Cowboys rivalry. This was a big throwback for us and knowing that rivalry and what it was in the 90s and everything that took place there, to be able to win that game meant so much to us, right? I think it meant so much to everybody, but people that were around in the 90s and
Hmm.
remember it, it meant a lot to us. And now they're getting ready to play Green Bay, which is another throwback to the 90s. Now, I know that they've butted heads with Green Bay quite a bit actually since, mid 2010s on, but it's just cool that they get to see the Cowboys, then the Packers. It this all feels right. So that out of the way, yes, they can learn a lot. I think the one thing that I would take from that game, if I was Shanahan and that coaching staff, is we have to figure out how to score points. Three's not going to cut it in this game. And
No.
Steve Young had a famous quote that says, "Every time you kick a field goal, you're one step closer to losing." And that's what that game felt like. And I had said something about it during the game, and people were like, "Well, you're not happy to be up 13 nothing." I said, "Well, listen, if you told me going into the game they would be up 13 nothing, I would have been elated. But seeing it play out, it should have been much more. And then as soon as I said that, Dallas goes down, scores immediately. All of a sudden, it's a one-score game, and you're thinking to yourself, well, hold on. The Niners have dominated this thing, yet they're only up one score. What happens now? And luckily, the Niners are able to pull it off and keep things going. Their defense played fantastic, but to expect to do that on short notice, Lambeau Field, third straight road game, essentially your third straight playoff game against the number one seed who's rested and a guy like Aaron Rodgers, I just don't think you can expect that. They have to figure out a way to score points. And I think that, third down and short, fourth down and short, they'll have some better things dialed up. I felt like it was a little scatterbrain in some of those scenarios. Running the ball on 3rd and 3 with Debo. I love Debo, but doing it on 3rd and 3, when you line them up in the backfield, everybody knows the run is coming.
Yep.
So to do that on 3rd and 3 and then not go it on forward on 4th down when you were up 10-0 was, I don't know, a little questionable. So those things to me are what they should take away from that game. You have to figure out a way to score points. And especially when you're moving the ball, you get down there, you got to get 7.
I tweeted in the beginning of the game. I saw your tweet about Steve Young, and I completely was thinking the same thing. I actually went into my brother's room because he lives in my house, and I was like, "Hey, one of the guys that I've corresponded with in the past on YouTube, he was talking. I said he referenced the Steve Young quote of the more field goals you kick, it's closer to losing. Referencing that first Cowboys NFC Championship game where the Niners were kicking field goals and Dallas was scoring touchdowns. And I remember tweeting, everyone was like, "Oh, we got this. We're going to smack them." And I'm like, yo, have you watched this 49ers team all season? Do you know how hot and cold we are as a team? And I remember saying that. And then the game, like you said, it played out the way it did. And I'm just like, really? It's frustrating because you see the throw down the left sideline to Ayuk that Jimmy, I don't know what happens. Everyone's like, so-and-so flattened his route. He missed it. He missed a wide open guy.
Yeah.
That game's over if he makes that.
Sure.
I don't think people realize how much momentum actually matters in sports. It just does. And I thought the Niners, if they get that touchdown or they score or he makes that completion, I think the game ending is totally different. And then, of course, we all know what happened with Jimmy and the interception, which I kind of almost prophesied was going to happen, and it happened anyways. So, yeah, find a way if you're up to keep the lead and find a way to not fall behind by only kicking field goals. It's this is the best team in the NFL we're facing, I think, or one of the best. And you're going against, in my mind, the top two, the second of maybe the top 2 quarterbacks that are in the NFL, and maybe right now, you put, Tom Brady number 1, and you'd probably put Aaron Rodgers right there under him. You need to bring your best game, and come out with your ass on fire. And if you lose, hey, at least you lose with no excuses. But you come into this game doing what they did, where you drive all the way down and then you can only get field goals. This game could be over quickly if the Niners don't respond touchdown for touchdown, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that, right? That's, for me, when I look at it, I knew last week Jimmy Garoppolo was going to throw an interception or turn it over in some way. You just know it's coming because he does it more often than not. When you have 45 starts with the 49ers and you have 46 turnovers, you're bound to turn the ball over. And he's turned it over basically, I think, 5 out of his last 6 starts. So chances are he's going to turn it over. However, I also thought that the 49ers could force a turnover against Dallas. When I look at this game, I don't believe that they're going to force a turnover against Green Bay. Now, they could, and I wouldn't be shocked, but Green Bay doesn't turn the ball over. 9 games this year, they had 0 turnovers. Aaron Rodgers only threw 4 interceptions. So when I look at that and say, okay, well, chances are the 49ers are going to turn the ball over, and chances are Green Bay is not going to turn it over. How do you overcome that? Well, you can't overcome it by kicking field goals. You
Nope.
have to get touchdowns. So I'll be curious to see how they play things. I expect Shanahan to be super aggressive this game. I really do. Not only because of what's on the line, but I think him and LaFleur have an axe to grind with each other. And I feel like Shanahan is going to come out and try to do whatever he can to put his foot on Green Bay's throat and set a tone early. I expect him to be very, very aggressive this game.
Yeah, and the way I look at it is, I told this, I had Rob, I was on Rob Shue's channel and he was also on mine, and I said the Rams game was like a microcosm of the 49ers season, falling early and then coming back to win in the end. I felt like the Cowboys game was kind of the same thing. It was kind of a microcosm where like they started fast and then all of a sudden they turn into a trickle of piss. Like they just don't do anything. They can't get first downs. You know, it they can't score touchdowns. Jimmy, of course, makes I get so frustrated when I watch him sometimes that I have to keep the television on mute because I get so mad. But those interceptions sometimes it sucks when you kind of know that they're coming because the game's going so well. But you can't have that in this game. Like you said, you got to be super aggressive, but at the same time, you can't turn the ball over because Aaron Rodgers doesn't throw interceptions. He just doesn't. He's having that kind of year. So the Niners have to, and their special teams has to come to play in this game. Regardless of the ending of this season, the final whatever the fate of this team is, they got to do something about their special teams going into next year. To me, it's cost them a ton this year, and in some games they've gotten away with it and they were able to kind of overcome. But then there's games like the Seattle game, which I think completely turned that game on its head. Um, they had the botched punt coverage where Josh Norman, of course, is like completely clueless and gives up the first down. Again, a momentum starter that could have been a momentum killer if the Niners stop him on that play. So, this is a game where the Niners in all three phases, it can't be like two phases doing good. They got to be in all three phases. They got to come to play.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's ironic though is Green Bay is one of the few teams that has a worse special teams than the 49ers. So at least they got that going for them because they need it in this one. They might be better in special teams, as crazy as that sounds. So, we're going to talk through this whole thing. We got a million topics to go over, but so I don't want to say too much, but yeah, for me, that's what they've got to take away. They just have to score points. You have to score points on the road in Lambeau against Aaron bleeping Rodgers.
It's
Take your
Aaron Rodgers.
touchdown.
Yeah, we're going against Aaron Rodgers here. Everyone's like, yeah, but you beat him before. I don't think that has anything to do with this game, to be honest with you.
No.
I think it's a completely different circumstance. I think Aaron Rodgers is a completely different quarterback. I think we're a different team than 2019. So everybody's saying, we have his number, whatever. That don't mean nothing. New year, new tournament. So we'll see. Speaking of Jimmy Garoppolo, as far as injuries goes, I guess he hurt his shoulder during the game. He had a shoulder sprain on top of his injured hand. What is your feeling of how much that affects him, and will it affect him worse, being that it's really cold out, especially the hand part of it?
Yeah, I would imagine the hand probably more than the shoulder. I don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, I don't think he's injured because I do. I truly believe that both those things are especially the thumb. I mean, that's very clear, right? I believe that he's definitely hurt himself, but I feel like the reason we're hearing about it, the thumb, we had to hear about it because he had to miss some time, right? And he almost missed the season. But the shoulder, they knew he wasn't going to miss any time. And the only reason we're hearing about it is because he didn't play well. If he played well, we wouldn't have heard anything about that shoulder. So
Nope.
I don't think the shoulder had any bearing on how he played at all. And if it did, listen, if you're good enough to play, then you've got to keep your mouth shut. There are no excuses. Once you step on the field, if you think and the team thinks that you are the best guy to lead this team over Trey Lance, then you better not have any excuses. You just can't. So I don't think the shoulder's going to play much of a factor. I don't think it played much of a factor last week, anyways. I think the thumb could. Cold, ball gets a little bit harder, a little bit more inflated. You got to squeeze a little bit harder. So sure, it could. I think Jimmy's going to be Jimmy regardless of
Yeah.
what's going on. Hurt thumb, hurt shoulder. I don't think any of that matters. Jimmy's going to do what Jimmy does, good or bad. Jimmy will be Jimmy, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I feel it's kind of like this narrative that always gets created every time he has a bad game. There's always an injury, whether it's the calf, shoulder, hand. It's kind of infuriating. It's like, dude, take the L, even if you didn't lose. Take the L. You perform bad. The press conference he'll talk about how it all hurts and this and that. And it's just like after a while, dude, I really don't want to hear it. Either you hurt and you miss time and you let somebody else play, or like you said, go in there, play, and shut up. I don't want to hear about it. We didn't hear about Tom Brady's issue until after the Super Bowl, after they won. Okay, and that was probably like it's like you know what it reminds me of. It's like people who do like somebody gives something away, a famous person, like they give away a car, say like The Rock or something, but it's always on camera. It's like
Right.
it just bothers me. Like the fact that we didn't know about it, we didn't know about Tom Brady, and we found out about it after, just creates the bigger lore. But when it's kind of a storyline going in that gives somebody an excuse to play bad, it's like super annoying. I hate hearing about it. So, like you said, if you're gonna play, be the best player on, the best quarterback to play. Otherwise, move aside and let somebody else play. Do I think in this particular game, with everything on the line, that Jimmy's probably the better choice at this point? Yes. Does that mean that I'm okay with the mistakes and the absent-minded plays that happen? No. But I'm also a 49ers fan in a whole as a whole. So I want
Yeah, of
whoever
course.
gives us the best chance to win. And if that's Jimmy, so be it. But you're right. If you're on the field, dude, don't talk about how hurt you are. There's guys on your defense uh, that are way more hurt than you are and that are still playing. So I really, like you said, I really don't want to hear it.
Yeah, and if he's healthy enough to play, I mean, it's too late. Like the whole I, I've been saying since day one, Lance should have started. Jimmy should have never been on the team. They should have removed the problem before it became a problem. But it was around week 10 or 12. I was at that point, I just said, you cannot go to Lance. Like it's too late for that, especially if the team's winning. You just got to write it out. It is what it is. Lance at least came in, got a couple games, looked good enough to keep fans at bay during the offseason and not have to wonder about if he can throw the ball accurately or with a spiral, like all these crazy things that people didn't think were possible from him. And just let it play out. Now, obviously, if Jimmy's really hurt and Lance needs to play, then we're rolling with Lance. But you got to let it run its course. Let Jimmy do his thing. I think he's earned that at this point. Let it play out, and hopefully they win a Super Bowl. I mean, that's a good problem to have as a fan. If they can win a Super Bowl, I don't care what happens next year. I don't care what happens the next 5 years.
I
Go
know.
get that ring,
Seriously.
right? It
Right.
doesn't once the game starts as a fan, I'm rooting for whoever's behind the center, and I assume that's going to be Jimmy. It's pretty clear that that's who Shanahan wants to roll with. And as a fan, I just have to trust Shanahan as making the right choice. I don't agree with it necessarily. I don't agree with how things were handled necessarily, but it's too late for all that. Like it's
Yeah.
playoff time. It's win or go home. And really, when I look at this game, I think this is the NFC Championship right here. I think these are the two best teams in the NFC. Whoever wins this game is going to the Super Bowl. So all that other crap means nothing right now. They just have to figure out a way to win this game, regardless of who's at any of those positions.
And you are very I wouldn't say unapologetic, but you have your views on Jimmy Garoppolo, and I agree with a lot of them. A lot of them. I'm not as brave because I try to keep. I, I I kind of ride the fence a little bit sometimes. I see why some people prefer Jimmy B in there. Like you said, if you're in the playoff push and he's been there all year, to make a change would be stupid. But at the same time, it doesn't make you any less of a fan if you can be critical and say what everybody else is seeing. I saw a little bit of a soundbite from Chris Sims and Mike Florio, and they kind of went in on Jimmy, and a lot of people had a lot of problems with it, and I really didn't, to be honest with you. I don't hate the guy. I'm just like, you gotta be people need to like stop with this like territorial thing, like you're not a real 49ers fan. It's like, no, dude, like the level of quarterback that this franchise is used to, and I know it was a long time ago and a lot of people weren't born for it. There's a high level of expectation when you play quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. So that's my personal thing. I don't know how you rate it, if it's the same with you, but I know uh, you're not shy to share your opinions, and I usually agree with a lot of them. You're a braver man than me because you take on a lot of arrows that get slung at you, and I applaud you for that. But yeah, I just get really tired of the whole narrative of like you're not a fan if you are critical. It's like that makes you more of a fan if you're critical because you're not me like a fair weather fan who kind of just goes with everything and is okay with all decisions. I don't think it works like that.
No, definitely. And here's the thing. I'm unapologetic and bold in my takes, and sometimes I'm wrong, and I'm fine admitting that. Like if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I was I've been saying this since 2019, and people can say what they want. We talk stats, and I can throw out a million stats as to why Jimmy's an issue and why he's not as good as some people think he is, and all these other things. But at the end of the day, it's a feeling, and it's watching the game. And I have never, ever, ever, ever had a quarterback for the 49ers make me as nervous as Jimmy Garoppolo makes me. And it started happening in 2019 when they were winning. Every
Yeah.
time this dude dropped back, I was like, here we go. Here comes a pick. Here comes a boneheaded throw. And I had never felt like that about anybody. And it was at that point that I'm like, this guy's got to go. Like, there's no way that I should feel this uneasy about the most important position in football. And then, I start looking into the deeper stats, and it backs what I'm seeing. And so now I've got a narrative. And so, but the flip side is this: as a fan, I've said this a million times over, and this is my stance on everything. As a fan, my only job is to root for the product on the field when the game starts. So if that product includes Jimmy G at quarterback,
Right.
I'm rooting for Jimmy G
Me too.
like I would Joe Montana,
Yep.
because that's my job as a fan. Like I want this guy to win. I want him to play well,
Me too.
because if he plays well, the team wins. Like that's what I want. Outside of that, though, as soon as that game's over, before that game, I'm entitled to whatever opinions I want.
Yep.
And I'm entitled to think critically about the game and what I'm watching and be real about it. It doesn't mean that I'm not rooting for him. It doesn't make me less of a fan. I'm just telling you what I'm thinking in that moment. And sometimes what I'm thinking in that moment gets me in a lot of hot water because it's not necessarily what I fully believe. But as a fan, I'm very emotional in that moment, and I'm not afraid to tweet during a game, live tweet during a game,
Oh,
and say whatever's
I'm
on
on
my
Twitter
mind,
all the
right?
time and I see you all through the game,
The whole
and
game,
like it's
every
great. I love
emotion.
it. I have no
It's
problem with it.
I try to take people through, if you're watching the game with me. If you were sitting next to me, this is what I would say to you. And everybody does this, by the way. Everybody has a family member, a friend, whatever. Whether they're watching the game with them or not, you're firing off text to them. You're
Mhm.
picking up the phone at commercial timeout, whatever. And you say crazy-ish sometimes. Like it's just the way it is. The emotion overtakes you. And so I'll get a lot of people that'll come back later and say, well, you said this. I'm like, you do realize that was during the first quarter, right? Like, that's not what my opinion is after watching the full game. But at any rate, yes, it doesn't make you less of a fan. You are entitled to your own opinions. Be as bold as you want to be. If people disagree, hit the mute button. I don't care. Do whatever
Mhm.
you want.
Uh, I've seen Mitch in the comments here. He made a statement. He asked Jay, and I'm gonna take responsibility for that because I kind of put Jay out there with the question.
No, that's fine.
He's like,
I love answering
really
these questions.
never felt this nervous before. Alex
No,
Smith, Tim Rattay, are you a fan?
here's the difference. Here's the difference, Mitch. I know this team is built to win.
Yep.
Those players were playing on teams that were bad teams that I expected to lose. So I had zero expectations.
Exactly.
When I watch this team play, I have high expectations. In fact, when I look at this team in 2019 and I look at it now, I genuinely think this is the best roster in football, both of those years. So when the most important position is bringing you down and is a liability,
Yes.
right? Every team has liabilities. There is no perfect team. The 49ers had a liability this year at corner. I believe that they've resolved that. Thank God for Ambry Thomas stepping up and playing the way that he is. They had a liability in stopping the run. Well, Armstead moved inside, problem solved. Special teams has been a liability. They've had their ups and downs, but it's probably still a liability. Jimmy Garoppolo was also a liability. And at that quarterback position, to be a liability on a team that you have high expectations for, it makes those thoughts and those feelings, you're more invested. You expect more. And so knowing that this guy at the drop of a hat could blow a game for you, that's what makes me nervous, especially when these games mean so much. When you're running 3-13 or 6-10, who cares? Who cares? Like, I don't care what these guys play like crap. I want a good draft pick anyways. I know the team's not any good, so I'm not as emotionally invested because I don't expect a lot from them. But when I expect a lot from a team, that guy's holding it back. That's the difference. So I hope that it explains things for you.
Diner Sickness wanted to say 33-15
Don't
with
do that, Niner
Jimmy,
Sickness.
8-20 without. See, I don't fault.
I love you, by the way, Niner Sickness.
I love him too.
I love
Beto is like one of the best people ever. But I just, the whole record thing to me, I kind of, how do I put this? Like, you look at Joe Montana's statistics in the postseason, and not only did he win, but his statistics, touchdown, interceptions, and all that stuff, completion percentage, was some of the highest ever. Okay. And if we're going to be 49er fans and we're going to boast about Joe Montana and everything he's done in the playoffs and all his statistics, you got to come with the same energy when a guy's statistics in the playoffs are as abysmal as Jimmy Garoppolo's are. The fact that Shanahan went away from him in both the divisional and the championship game, and when they needed him to step up in the biggest game at the end, he came up short. To me, every position, I mean, the Niners are loaded in a lot of places, but if you look at all the playoff quarterbacks, you could honestly say the one I have, the one that a lot of people have the least confidence in and kind of rate the lowest is Jimmy. And I'm not mad about that because that's how I feel. Now, you lose a lot of subs, you lose a lot of followers, whether it's on Twitter, on YouTube, whatever, but that's just a fact. The quarterback should be able to win you games outright by himself sometimes. And this team is loaded. So if the quarterback is the one position that is detrimental to your team that you can improve, like they decided to do in the draft last year, then you go ahead and do it. I mean, these windows aren't open forever. I mean, look at it. They're going to have Nick Bosa probably under contract soon again, Deebo Samuel, a young Eli Mitchell. They still have George Kittle in his prime. They still have a pretty good linebacking core and defensive line. They're going to add to it in the offseason. You got to do what you got to do to win. And if that means replacing somebody with someone else who you think can take you over or past that threshold that you've reached, or and I just I get jealous sometimes when I watch certain teams like the Green Bays or the Tampas and stuff, because you look at him and you're like, that Tampa coach sucks. He's only good because he has Tom Brady as quarterback, and he's going to go back to being irrelevant. And I just wish the Niners would be that squad, would have that quarterback, like when Kaepernick first came on the scene, how much of a phenom he was. And I fell for it. I thought he was going to be the next great one. And that position just holds so much importance, especially with this franchise, that yeah, you're right. To have that kind of anxiety going into a game, it's the worst. I'm the same way. I feel the exact same way. When I watch games, I'm always thinking, okay, when's the other shoe going to drop? And I hate to be that way, but that's what we've grown to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing is like I don't have any ill will towards Jimmy. Like this is not a personal thing. I'm sure he's a
Right.
fine person and I appreciate that he's been so professional. Like this whole situation has got to suck for him too, right? We just talked about how it sucks to be a fan when there's a quarterback controversy every single week it seems. We know it sucks for both Lance and Jimmy's done a great job handling it. So it's just not a personal vendetta or anything. It's just Jimmy is a net zero quarterback. And what I mean by that is more often than not, he's not the reason you win. He's not the reason you lose. Now, that doesn't mean he can't win you a game. Doesn't mean he can't lose you a game. But over the course of a season, more often than not, he's just kind of there. And by the way, there's a bunch of quarterbacks that are like that in the NFL, a bunch of starters. There's 10 to 12 guys on a given year that you're not looking to replace or upgrade the position, right? And Jimmy's just one of those guys that I don't know, he falls somewhere anywhere between 17 and 22 on a given year. And it doesn't mean that you're actively going out trying to replace him every year. But if something better comes along, as a franchise, you're going to replace that guy. There's not many quarterbacks in the league ever that are irreplaceable. Again, there's 8 to 10 guys every year that you say, okay, we know we're set at quarterback. We're not even looking at all. But everybody else, the other 22 to 24 teams in the league are, hey, if something better comes along, I'm going to go after that. And the whole thing about the record is all that tells me is that Jimmy's better than the third string guys that had played there before. I feel like if any starting caliber quarterback, which Jimmy is, I want to be clear about that. He's a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. Any starting caliber quarterback could win with this team at the clip that he wins with. Some more, some right around the same, but I just don't think he brings anything special to this team that any other starter, actual starter in this league could bring to this team.
And my whole thing too is like, if this team wasn't actively searching to upgrade their quarterback position over the last couple of seasons, I wouldn't be so, I guess, opinionated that the Niners, or at least, us fans have like, oh, well, that's why they traded. They traded for Lance. They trade away future draft picks to get him. They were actively in the mix for he's on the Rams.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady.
And Stafford.
Yep.
So you could say whatever you want about the situation, whether you're whatever side you land on, whether you're pro Jimmy and then there's supposedly us fans that just hate him so much. Why was the franchise looking to replace him? I mean, look as far as back as when Alex Smith was here. Okay. The Niners were actively looking at Peyton Manning. Okay. It's not it's not a assassination on someone's character. It's just the fact that at that position, if you can get better and you have a guy that's kind of middle of the pack and you have a roster that's ready to compete right now, and you think this quarterback even at Peyton Manning's current state at that point of his career is better than the guy you have now, you do whatever it takes to get him there.
Absolutely.
And if you could say whatever you want about fans that crap on him or fans that are, fans of him, the organization itself has told you exactly what they think of him as a quarterback. So whatever we all think, whether it's pro or against, Trey Lance is going to be the starting quarterback next year. So everybody's going to have to deal with it. All I say is bring that same energy of support that we give to Jimmy and all the excuses when Trey has a stinker next year, because he probably will, because he's a young quarterback.
For sure he will. For sure he will. Mitch asked who is more clutch between Dak and Jimmy.
I would go Jimmy.
Mitch, I don't know if you know this. There's actually a stat that shows clutchness. Fourth quarter play. Jimmy is the worst quarterback in NFL history in the fourth quarter in the playoffs. Not playing today. Ever. Every quarterback that has ever donned a fourth quarter in the NFL playoffs, Jimmy Garoppolo is the worst statistically. It's not good, my man. Like, that's just not good. We can talk about clutching up in the regular season, but
And he
it's not
has.
that's he has, but at the same time, you don't earn your chops being clutch in the regular season. You earn your chops being clutch in the postseason. I'm telling you, this guy he's not what some people think he is, but I don't listen, I don't want to hate on him. He's our quarterback right now. I hope that he throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns
Me too.
tomorrow. Like, please just do that. Go win the game, right? Like, I
Yeah,
don't,
be the reason we win the game tomorrow.
yeah, please do. And I'll publicly apologize. I don't
Yes.
care. Whatever has to
I
happen,
will
make
get a
it happen.
poster of you and I will kiss your feet
Seriously.
like like
uh,
whatever. All right. Let's get let's move off the Jimmy topic because I think
yeah,
I'm
let's
pissing a
do
lot
it.
of
Let's do
people
it.
off.
Because you know what? Well, yeah, but not only that, there's the Jimmy thing's a big deal because we talked about the turnovers. It has to be talked about. But now that we've gotten past it, there's a lot of things that play into this game, why it will be won or lost outside of the quarterback position. And I want to make sure that we talk about those things because I know that there are other things on people's mind, and there's other things on my mind on how this game could play out, why it would play out those ways. And I think we got to get to those for sure.
Yeah, got to get moving. My one real quick thing. You saw the report that Nick Bosa passed the protocol for a concussion,
Yes.
so it looks like he's a go.
Huge.
That's
Yes.
huge for tomorrow. I'm worried about him because that was a pretty nasty collision. Whereas his father said something along more of the lines, it was more of a neck thing, which it all connects. But I'm glad he's playing. It's the playoffs, man. Everybody's hurt at this point in the season, so glad about that. So one of the topics I sent you before you came on today was the Niners' offensive blueprint, and should they take a page out of what the Cleveland Browns did when they played the Packers? I forgot which game, if it was the second to last, third to last game of the regular season,
Mm.
where if Baker Mayfield is in a complete sieve of turnovers, they win that game easily. They ran for 219 yards on less than 30 carries. I'm almost and Green Bay struggles. If you look at a lot of what do they call it, DVOA or any of
Mhm.
those statistics, when it comes to running, they're one of the worst teams. In your mind, and I know what I'm thinking in mine, would it be smart for the Niners to kind of use that blueprint of hold the ball as long as possible, be as physical as possible, run it down their throats, and then, when you're on defense, try to get those quick turnarounds, quick 3-and-outs, get the ball back to the offense, pretty much play keep away.
Yeah, absolutely. Luke's trying to bait me over here. Luke, hit me up
Mhm.
on Twitter. We'll have the conversation on Twitter, brother. I'll gladly have the back and forth with you. But yeah, absolutely, man. Here's the thing. I know this isn't 2019, and I know that when they played Green Bay the first time, that they weren't able to run the ball like that.
Right.
I think there's a lot of reasons for it, but let's just say they weren't able to run the ball the way that they wanted to, and that was factual. Saying all of that though, I still think there's a little softness in that Green Bay defense. I really do. I think I don't know if they can come out and run for 250 or 300 yards or craziness like that, but I think they can put up 150 on this team. I think they can control the clock. I think they can wear that defense out. And I think that they can move the ball by running it. I really do. And I expect them to do just that. The 49ers can't and won't get away from what they do best. They were down 17 against the Rams and they still ran the ball. They had a
Right.
whole drive where Jimmy threw 0 times and they scored a touchdown when they were down by double digits. So they're willing to do whatever it takes to continue to run the ball. And that's the difference. That's a big difference, I should say, between what happened early in the season and late and why they've had this resurgence. Now, there's obviously other things that we talked about, but that's a big thing. They didn't have an identity early in the season. It didn't seem like we knew what the identity should be, but they weren't showing that week in and week out. They are now. They're running the ball come hell or high water. That's what they're going to do. And I'm going to throw out something to you that I think plays really, really big in showing how unprepared Green Bay is for a running team like the 49ers. So last week, I pointed out that the 49ers run 21 personnel more than any team in the NFL. So for anybody watching that doesn't understand what that means two running backs, one tight end, two wide receivers. The reason for that is because not a lot of teams even carry a fullback, right? The 49ers obviously do in use check, but they ran it 373 times in the regular season. That's nearly 100 more than any other team. Only two other teams ran it more than 200 times. I say all of that to say teams aren't used to facing it. Dallas only saw it 53 times during the regular season. And I think that played a factor. They weren't ready for that physicality. And the interesting thing about the 49ers is even when they go 11 personnel, which means one running back and two tight ends, or excuse me, one running back and one tight end, they have Debo that they can motion in the backfield, which basically makes it 21 again. So even when they're running quote unquote 11 personnel, they still can turn that into 21. So the fact that the 49ers do this more than anybody, the Packers, by the way, actually only saw that personnel 49 times in the regular season. They're not prepared for what the Niners are going to bring to them. You cannot prepare for a Debo Samuel on 1 week notice. You cannot prepare for that physicality on 1 week notice. You are who you are at this point in the season. The 49ers are going to smash you in the mouth. You may be able to stand up to it. And if you can, you'll probably win that game. But if you fold the way that you did in 2019, the way that I believe that they haven't proven that they are over that quite yet, because I haven't seen a team really punch them in the mouth that way. And when they do, Cleveland, for example, 4 turnovers Cleveland had in that game, and they still almost won because they punched them square in the mouth. The 49ers absolutely can execute that game plan. And if they limit the turnovers on top of it, it's going to be a long day for Green Bay.
Luke Luna and I'm trying to see in the comments here, Ryan Williams both kind of hit on the fact that whoever it takes, the Niners are going to run the ball, whether it's a mix of, I think they need to get Jeff Wilson Jr. involved personally.
I agree.
Rob Shue kind of made a point of saying, at this point you go with who is the hottest player and you kind of ride him until it's over. But
for sure.
I think the spelling the kid a little bit, because he's shown that he's a little bit, I can't say fragile, he just gets hurt.
Yeah.
And then the fact that they mix Debo, the Niners, whatever way, I feel like whoever it is running, even Kittle, I just think that that's their identity, at least for now, as far as long as Jimmy's their quarterback. We'll see if that changes next year when Trey takes over. But yeah, you're right. Like whatever it takes. And if Green Bay can't stop it, why change? Why throw the ball? I wouldn't.
No, definitely not. But to Rob's point, actually, they both can be true. Like Mitchell is the hot hand. You can ride Mitchell for 25 carries, but you can also mix in other guys.
Yes.
Like it doesn't have to just be Mitchell, right? And yeah, Mitchell's definitely not, I don't want to say he's injury prone or whatever. I mean, you get into 25 car crashes a game, you're going to get hurt. It's just the way the human body's not built for it. But yeah, they can run the ball 35, 40 times and Mitchell can still get his 25 touches. And I expect him to. I want him to, but I would love for a Wilson. Obviously, we know Debo's going to touch the ball, a Kittle, whatever. I mean, multiple guys. I'm not afraid to run the ball 40 times if they can make it happen. And if they do that, it shouldn't be Mitchell getting 33 carries and Debo 7. Like that shouldn't be the mix.
I figure we kind of covered this topic earlier, but what we were talking about, self-inflicted wounds, special teams, and turnovers and penalties. Do you have anything else to add to that as far as just how the Niners need to approach this game as far as all three phases, kind of special teams having to really, I mean, they've played some of their worst games this year and they played one of them last week as well. Any other thoughts on that topic? Because I figure we've already kind of covered it, so I don't want to kind of spend too much time on it.
No. I think we've covered it. I mean, those are really the keys to the game that I think all of us see it.
As far as the Niners' defensive plan, I think it kind of interconnects with their offensive plan. You think the Niners are going to stay in their the normal cover 3 and just kind of rush 4, or will they mix anything up? I feel like that the Niners are at their best when they kind of stay based, not in their base, but they, rush 4 and put everybody else in coverage. Do you think anything changes?
I do a little bit. Here's what I like. Here's why I really like DeMeco Ryans is he's very team specific. Like if he sees something, he's not afraid to change it up. He's like, all right, we're going to go cover 1 this week. We'll cover 4 this week. We'll go cover 3 this week. Like, he will switch it up depending on the team and what he sees fit. I think we're going to see a little bit of everything. The one thing that I've seen from D'Amico is he's not afraid to be aggressive.
No,
He is
he's
not
not.
afraid to be aggressive. And here's something that I went back and I watched the film on the Packer game on Monday. And I was watching the 49ers defensive film. And one thing that showed up really late in that game. Now, let's not forget that this was Mosley's first game back. Diamador Lenore was playing because K1 got hurt in that game. And Ambry Thomas was not a thing yet. So Josh Norman was the other corner. Johnson played quite a bit as well. So it wasn't ideal. But one thing that showed up right after that Jimmy backward pass, fumble, whatever it was, 3rd down and 4. Huge situation. Green Bay cannot get in the end zone here. Heck, Green Bay can't get a first down here. They may be able to keep it from the 49ers, and that's it. Mosley actually traveled with Devontae Adams, which the 49ers never do. Mosley's on one side, whoever's across from him is on the other. They don't cross paths. That very rarely happens. Yet they had Mosley travel with Devontae. Sure enough, they went to Devontae, tried to go back shoulder fade on him. Mosley was there. He wasn't having it, broke it up. Green Bay kicks a field goal. Now the 49ers have a chance. We know what happened after that. But I have a feeling that might show up from time to time in this game. I think that might be a precursor. I don't think it's going to happen all game, but I could see it happening key 3rd downs, red zone, that type of stuff. Just enough to not give Green Bay a key on it, mix it in here or there, big moments. I think that that's something right there that might show up this week during this game.
Well, I was talking to Rob yesterday, and he was talking about, Aaron Rodgers is seeing everything there is to see, just like Tom Brady. You're not going to confuse him. But that being said, you can't come out completely vanilla and only rush for. Scott Davidson said it best. They really need to get pressure on Rodgers. If 4 isn't working, then mix in blitzing. You definitely, when you say mix, I mean, it really has to be smart blitzing, because if you, pardon my French, if you blow your load with Aaron Rodgers, he's going to kill you. So,
yeah,
it's all about when you blitz, where you blitz from. I know the Niners like the blitz from the slot. I think that's huge. They do well with that. But if you don't get pressure on Aaron Rodgers, just like if you don't get pressure on Tom Brady, you're not going to win. I'm sorry. These guys are good for a reason. All quarterbacks like good pass protection. All quarterbacks hate to get hit, especially with it being cold out. Aaron Rodgers isn't the biggest guy. You smack him around enough, he's probably going to get bothered by it. Just like Jimmy. Jimmy don't like getting hit either. He gets scattered. He becomes scatter shot in craters in the pocket. So my thing is, even if we don't get to him sometimes, if you knock him down enough, some people start to get a little bit gun shy. So whatever it takes at this point, if you win, you go on. If you don't win, at least you can go out with your head held high, knowing that you did everything you could. And it just, maybe it comes up short, but we will see.
I think the one thing too that we talked about Armstead getting moved inside and how big of a difference that's made in the run game. It's made a difference in the getting to the quarterback as well and in the pressure rate. And I think that's a big spot. I think that they can force pressure up the middle, get right in Aaron Rodgers' lap, because let's face it. I mean, Aaron's good in the pocket. He's mobile, right? But he's still getting older. Like he's not going to just outrun you to the edge, right? So if you force pressure up the middle, make him reset his feet, figure out where he needs to go, by that time the edge is crashing in, and that's that. So I think pressure up the middle is going to be key, not just pressure, because if you pressure him from the outside, Aaron's too good. He's just going to step up in the pocket. He's going to take a step left or right or do what he needs to do. He can avoid that pressure quite a bit. He knows what he's doing in there. But if you throw it right in his lap, he doesn't have a choice. Like, he has to move outside and try to get away going right or going left. And that's going to force him into the oncoming traffic that's collapsing on the outside. So I think between Armstead, Narden Key, DJ Jones, I think those guys are going to play a big factor in this game. And yes, it's important that Bosa's playing and some of these other guys, but I think those stunts that up the middle pressure, that's going to be really, really important this game.
Speaking of, we talked about it earlier as we transition. The weather. How much of a factor do you think it really plays? Do you think it matters to the players, or is it one of those things once you get into the playoffs and the game is as meaningful as it is? Is it really a non-factor? I personally don't like the cold to that extent. I used to play backyard ball outside, and my hands would get frostbitten,
Oh
and it
yeah.
sucked. So I can only imagine a professional athlete who gets paid how much worse it must be getting hit, slammed to the ground. Do you think it's as big of an issue as I'm making it to be, or do you think these players are pretty tough-minded?
Yeah, I think they're pretty tough minded. I I I would put my money on, even though there's one team that plays in Wisconsin and one team that plays in California. I'd put my money on the 49ers being better built for the elements anyways. So if anything, I think it plays to the 49ers favor. I mean, imagine you're Green Bay or any team and you've got to prepare for the most physical team in football. One of the two most physical teams. I think the Titans are pretty physical too, but
Oh yeah.
most physical team arguably in football. And now it's going to be cold on top of it. Every hit's going to hurt that much more. You're going to feel it just a little bit longer. It may not be that big of a deal, but it's one of those things that maybe it does wear on you, but I really feel like that favors the 49ers as long as it's not wet, especially with Jimmy and his thumb and gripping the ball being an issue anyways. As long as it's not wet, I think the cold um maybe even snow, as long as it's not super wet snow, I'd be fine with any of it because anything that may help slow down Aaron Rodgers is a win for the 49ers.
I always think personally when it's cold or it's bad weather and it's a running type game, it always favors the 49ers because that's kind of their MO. Like I said, at least now with Jimmy, they like to run the ball. The Niners are a running team. I don't think they're a pass first team. They're a run first team. And they like to run the ball. I used to hate it as a
1000%.
kid. I used to hate watching games where the team ran it all the time. I'm like, "Oh, I want to see some throws." I've kind of changed. I've become like, I love it. I love gouging teams. Like when during the playoffs, when I was just like, wow, that's impressive. Yeah, I think this weather honestly favors the 49ers in a lot of ways. Um, but I mean, the game has to be played. We don't know. It's in Green Bay's house. They got Aaron Rodgers. We don't. So we'll see, man. I'm really I really don't know how to feel about this game. There's part of me that's kind of confident and thinking the Niners could come in and roll and get an upset. And then there's another part of me that thinks that, it could be an ugly game and we might be on the bad end of it. So I'm one of those fans that's like mentally kind of on the teeter totter. I don't know how to feel about it, but I feel
I
like
think your emotions are right, though, Aaron. I really do. I think that your emotions are spot on because I really genuinely think this is a coin flip. I do. I know that Vegas has it at 6 or whatever it's at, but I'm telling you, like, this is a coin flip game. One play either way can make the difference. I think these teams are so evenly matched and they're both so damn good that it really could come down to one thing. And maybe that one thing is the 49ers had to play on day 6 instead of day 7. Maybe that one thing is 49er fans don't travel near as well this time. And so they come out a little flat. Who knows what it's going to be, but there are definitely things that we should be concerned about as Niner fans, but there's things that we should be confident about as well.
Chris Royal, I just want to say thank you for the $5 super chat. Chris says, I see us getting home at least a couple of times on Rodgers. I believe we will keep him off balance a good portion of the game. I hope you're right.
Yeah.
Most quarterbacks don't like getting hit, especially when it's cold. Aaron Rodgers is no different. Aaron ain't the biggest guy either. Like I keep saying, he's a skinny dude, man. Put that man on his behind. Nobody likes it. If you let him sit back there and go through his reads twice, we're gonna get mollywopped, man. It's just there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So I am hoping the Niners kind of come with the game plan of complementary football, run the ball, don't put the ball up in the air a whole ton, and you know play some physical defense, get Aaron Rodgers knocked around a little bit, maybe throws you one or two. Who knows? At this
God, if
point,
they get a turnover on Aaron Rodgers, they're winning this game. If Aaron throws a pick or fumbles, they're going to win this game. I'm calling it right now. So it's just so rare that it happens with Rodgers.
I hope you're right, man. I hope you're right. I'll pass on the Jimmy debate because we've already talked about that. But
Yeah, yeah. We beat that one into the ground.
speaking of Jimmy, I asked Rob this, but I'll ask you too. Think any chance the Niners can recoup a first round pick after the season with Jimmy, or is that freaking pie in the sky?
Not a chance. Not a chance.
I love your firmness on that one.
Yeah, no way. Absolutely not. No, 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 no.
No matter what Peter King says.
I don't care what Peter King says. Here's the thing: is if they can, that's fantastic. More power to you. But these guys watch everything that we watch, and they don't do it with their red and gold glasses on. They're doing it from an X's and O's. They know what Shanahan does to help this guy. They know that their coach probably can't do what Shanahan does. There are teams that could use him for sure. Washington could use him. Pittsburgh could use him. New Orleans could use him. There are definitely teams that could use him. I could see a situation where they get a future fourth that could escalate to a third, depending on how many games he plays or what his stats are or what have you. If they get a first,
someone got robbed.
Color me wrong, and I will admit it happily. Right. But I don't think there's a shot in hell that they can get a first round pick for Jimmy G.
The young Montana said, "We'll take a fifth for Jimmy. Kyle Lynch missed early rounds anyways." I've said the same thing, man. Give us a mid-round pick. We suck in the early rounds, man. Unless they're like home run hits like Debo or Bosa. Yeah. Man, we're horrible in those areas. I mean, look at Contavious Street, friggin' Mike McGlinchey. I'm not a big McGlinchey fan. Solomon Thomas, Reuben Foster, you name it. For as good as the Niners have done, and this is going to transition in my final topic, as good as the 49ers have done and their front office guys have done landing undrafted guys or late round picks, they're just as bad in the early rounds. And right so far they haven't, it hasn't caught up to them. But if this was a team that was consistently finishing the season in the playoffs all the time, if you miss on those picks, that's how teams go from being really good to going into a really bad stretch, is when they start missing in the playoffs. And then they have to be like the Patriots, who went free agent crazy this past offseason, because they've had some pretty big misses in their drafting the last couple of years under Belichick. So speaking of that, I'll end it with this. I've been seeing all the news about Adam Peters and the front office and the coaching carousel and some of our assistants getting love. How much of an impact would it be to lose a guy like Adam Peters or Mike McDaniel or D'Amico Ryans if and when that stuff was to happen? If it's not this season, maybe next season. Because I'll give my honest opinion first. The Adam Peter one kind of scares me, because I think he has more to do with some of these late round guys than John Lynch does.
Yeah. Yeah, they came out and said that Ambry Thomas was a Peters pick. So yeah, here's the thing is it's tough. It's tough to understand what losing McDaniel or Peters would mean, because we don't fully know what they bring to the table, right? We in a roundabout way, we hear about little things like Ambry Thomas. We know that McDaniels runs the running game. He's the running game coordinator, but he doesn't call plays. We know that Shanahan for years has been able to run the ball, right? Before, after, it's not, I'm sure he brings something to the table. We know what D'Amico Ryans brings to the table. We see it every single week. We see it play in, play out. We lose D'Amico. That is a huge loss. One that it may take years to replace. So we know that that's a huge loss. These other ones, I assume they're big losses, but are they irreplaceable guys? Do we know for sure what the impact is? It's impossible to say. It really is. So I would prefer not to lose any of them, because we know what they have in place now is working. But if they lost those guys, I wouldn't lose too much sleep. They lose D'Amico, man, that one would be massive. So that's the one that I would be most worried about.
I just want to say thank you to Tommy Huxley, $2 super chat. He says McButt Flinchy. Thomas Compton. I don't know exactly what that means, but
He's saying Compton's better.
you think so?
That's what
I'm
he's
starting
saying.
to think so too. I mean, somebody in the chat says we've been a lot better since McGlinchey left. So
Yeah.
I was never a fan of the McGlinchey draft pick at all, and I wasn't a fan of the not Contavia Street defensive
Solomon
tackle.
Thomas?
No, the man we
Oh,
replaced,
Kinlaw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He talks a lot. He's all brash and big in the preseason and the off season, and then you don't see him. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
more one of those people that just like shut up, play or be quiet. I don't want to hear how
Right.
tough you are. If you're, I don't know, man. I'm old school. My nephew's the same way, and he's 26, going on 27. He's never seen a championship. I've seen him. I want this man to see one before his 30th birthday, hopefully. But me and him, even though we're generations apart, when it comes to how we feel about the 49ers, we are very pessimistic, like realist. People are like, are you even fans? I'm like, yeah. They're like, well, when we watch games with you, you guys are miserable. I'm like, just we have an expectation, and that's what we want. And if we don't reach that expectation, no player's safe. That's what my nephew says. No player's
Yeah.
safe. If you can't get the job done, get somebody else in there who can. So we'll see.
Well, Shanahan runs it that way, though. He really does. I mean, everything's
it's
an open competition.
It's a meritocracy for sure with Shanahan. Doesn't matter where you drafted. If you suck and a 6th rounder can come in and do the job, a la Elijah Mitchell over Trey Sermon, then
it is what it is.
Before I get out of here, I just want to say thank you again to Chris Royal for another $5 super chat. He said, do you think Chris Kassura could take over if he leaves? The guy he coaches seem to love him and gets the most out of his players.
Yeah. I mean, he could. I don't know if that's what he wants, though. Not everybody wants to promote.
Yeah, some people like where they are on it, like our running back coach who's been with all the both Shanahans.
Mm-hmm.
You know what his name?
I
forget.
I'm drawing a blank as well now. Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about? He's been with
I almost drew a blank on
we're getting old. That's what happened.
Daniel's name. Yeah. So
right.
I'm drawing a blank on.
I just call him
right
a
now.
nerd because he looks like a nerd.
Yeah. But yeah, either way, yes, sure if he wants to, but I don't know that if that's what he wants to do. As long as he stays on the staff, it's helpful, right? Regardless of let's say somebody else comes in, they're the defensive coordinator. If he's on the staff, I feel better about it. I definitely don't want to lose him. I would hate for him to take a promotion and go with D'Amico Ryan somewhere. That would be worst case scenario. Then who knows what the hell's happening? Bobby Turner, there you go.
Bobby Turner, thank you very much, chat.
Thanks, chat. You guys are great.
Yeah. Luke Luna says the narrative that we suck drafting in early rounds: Buckner, Bosa, Ayuk, Devo, Armstead, Ward, Kinlaw, and if the knee holds up, Lance.
To be fair, though, most of those guys that you just mentioned were prior. Like half those: Armstead, Buckner, Ward. Who else did he say?
Let me go back up. It's always so tricky with this chat thing. It gets stuck. Where'd it go?
At least those guys that you mentioned. I forget who else you mentioned. Buckner. Yeah, Armstead, Ward. Those guys were all there before. So, yes, Bosa, Ayuk, Debo. But then there's the Kinlaw, the Solomon Thomas, the Foster. 50-50 at best. And even I love Ayuk, but they passed on some really good receivers that, Justin Jefferson that was there, so it's not a perfect science here. But here's the thing. A lot of people do kill the 49ers draft. There's actually a website that puts together how successful you are versus how many picks you had and where your picks were. The 49ers rank in the Shanahan regime, I think it's 16th overall. So they're kind of middle of the pack as far as overall drafting. But a lot of that, to your point, Aaron, is because of those late round steals that they get.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm the type of person, I really don't care where the talent comes from.
Yeah, I don't care either.
In the end, if
Pettis, there we go. Pettis is another one. Garbage.
Pettis, thank you. Oh, I was never a fan of him. He blocked me on Twitter because I said I'm like, dude, do you like cats or do you like football? Like I kind of went
Yeah,
after him.
seriously,
I'm a
it's so
cat guy.
weird.
I'm a cat guy too, but I don't know, man. Dude didn't look like he was built to play football or wanted to play football. I'm sorry, man. Like
No, no, definitely not.
you shy away from contact. In my eyes, when you're a paid professional, dude, get off the field. This is coming from an armchair 42-year-old, but I don't know, man. I haven't. I think I'm
I
done with
prefer Debo for sure.
Debo all day, every freaking day. I'm hoping they give him a new contract because I only get jerseys of guys who are signed through the future.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like I never get my nephew's the same. Never get quarterback jerseys. If you're going to get a quarterback jersey, go with a Montana. Um,
Right.
but if you're going to get players, I always wait till they're signed. So if Debo gets a contract, I'm getting a Debo. Hopefully Bosa. I have a Bosa already, but all right, guys. I'll just read the super chat real quick, and then I'll let Luke get out of here. Or excuse me, Luke. Jesse, get out of here. Says excited to
Luke's been
get.
in the chat the whole night, so
Yeah, Luke's always in the chat. Luke's one of the best around. He's trying to get his channel. He's going to get a channel up and running soon. He's just
oh, is he?
yeah, he
Oh,
just technology isn't his friend. I wish I could live in the same. I was in the same house with them. I would kind of walk him through stuff. So it's one of those kind of things where you're like afraid to take that step with the technology.
I feel it.
You
Luke,
know what I mean?
if you need anything, man, reach out. I'll do what I can to give you any advice or
Right.
help you out any way I can. More power to you, man.
I think he
I'm
jumped in and
more the merrier.
Rob's one of Rob's call-ins, and he actually was on camera he was doing a tattoo. I told him start small, you know,
Yeah.
be a guest on somebody's deal or a call-in, and then eventually work your way up. I didn't show my face until like a year and a half into my channel. So
There you go.
thanks for the 199 super chat, Chris. Everybody, thank you so much for joining. I had a blast. Jesse, thanks for coming on, sharing your time with me. I hope we get to experience a win, and maybe we can do this again in the future. I told Rob, but I wanted to do a collaborative stream with the two of you guys.
Oh,
Um,
I would
do
love it.
like a power
I
hour,
love
just
Rob.
like
Rob is such a
he's one of
I
the most
love Rob,
positive
man.
49er fans. Oh, and
He is.
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Luke Luna. I appreciate
Hey,
that.
Luke, there you go.
Yeah, we'll try to help you as much as possible. Like I said, I wish you lived in the same house to make it so much easier.
For sure.
But yeah, thanks for coming on, bro. I appreciate it. And
Absolutely.
hopefully tomorrow night by, I don't know, midnight, we'll know if we're going on or staying home. Regardless how the season ends, man, I think this 49er team showed me a lot this year, and I definitely have a lot of good feelings going forward into next year.
Yeah, definitely. And it's hard though, right? Because we were having this debate. I was having a debate with a couple friends, and I don't think it's a lost season if they lose. Obviously, getting to the playoffs is always success. I love that. But when you're this close, you got to win now because there's so much turnover in the NFL. There's so much unknown. I mean, think about this. After 2019, I think we all thought the 49ers would be a playoff team making a run in 2020. And then COVID hit out of nowhere. You look at Dan Marino back in the day, he makes the Super Bowl in year 2. Do you think Dolphin fans ever in a million years imagine they wouldn't be back with Dan Marino?
Not
All those
once.
years he played? Not one more time. You look at those 49er teams with Harbaugh. None of us saw that mass exodus of players happen. You just never know what's going to happen. So now that they're this close, it's like you gotta punch it home because next year the turnover on the roster is going to be high. The schedule's going to be tougher.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. Right now, they're fairly lucky, knock on wood, with injuries right now. They're very
They have
lucky with injuries. This is
crazy.
the opposite of what it was in 2019
Right.
and 2020. They are very, very healthy for the most part right now. So you just don't know how things are going to play out. Obviously, we look at Lance and say, oh man, big arm quarterback, athletic,
Big
smart.
guy.
This kid's going to be amazing. You don't know. You
We
don't know
don't.
what's going to happen. So
We
it's
don't.
like, you just, now that you're here, you have to cash in. So if they lose tomorrow, hell of a season, proud of them no matter what. But I would definitely be disappointed because
Yeah,
you
me
got a
too.
chance here. You really got a chance with this roster, this good. You got a chance to win the Super Bowl. So I would love for this to keep going after tomorrow for sure.
Definitely. Everybody says it's been a fun season and a good turnaround.
Yeah.
I will say this to everybody, including you, Jesse. My brother talked to me about possibly going out west next year when the
Mm.
Dolphins come to San Francisco. I've never been to a football game. He has. He's been to a he's a Dolphins fan, but I live in Rochester, New York, so of course he's went to see the Dolphins in Buffalo. He's like, "You want to go cross country?" My nephew's a Niners fan, and I'm like, "We'll go to California." I'm like, I've never been on a plane, but so my hope is if I do that, some of you guys, some of you content guys are there at the game and we could kind of just, I don't know, take pictures,
Yeah,
just
well, listen, I'll tell you, nothing's set in stone for next year, but we're a bunch of us on Twitter are talking about going to Vegas to catch the Raider game, the Niner Raider
ooh,
game,
that
and
would be
checking out that
interesting.
stadium. So we'll definitely loop you in, whatever we end up deciding to do. But yeah, I think it'd be great. I met Nick from Nothing But Niners. We met up at the
He seems like a
Jacksonville
really
game.
cool guy.
Super genuine guy. In fact, he's in Tampa right now, which is where I live. We're gonna watch the game tomorrow
That's
together.
awesome. That's
Um,
awesome.
so excited about that. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy because getting into this, obviously I jumped in for the content and whatever, but I
Me too.
never imagined in a million years that
There's a
that
brotherhood,
I
man.
it is, it really is a brotherhood, and I respect each and every. It's kind of like, I don't know if you're a mixed martial arts guy or a boxing guy, but
I kind of, I mean, I'm a general fan. I wouldn't say that
Mhm.
I know a lot about it, but I
Yeah,
respect the hell out of it.
right. Okay, so there you go. But when you watch these guys fight, even if there's a lot of bad blood, as soon as that fight's over, knowing that like they shed sweat and blood in that cage or that ring with somebody
Right.
else, and knowing how hard it is to make that walk, they always have respect for each other. And this is not that. I don't want to compare the two too much, but just knowing that it is hard to make content. It's hard to come up with ideas
It
on a
is.
moment's notice. It's hard to be original and be yourself when there's 40 other people that people could choose to listen to. It's,
Yep.
do you don't want to talk about the same things. You don't want to have the same takes. And it's not easy to do what we do, but we love it. And to know that there's somebody across the screen that loves it as much as I do and craves it as much as I do and puts themselves out there as much as I do, I respect it. And so, it really is a brotherhood, and the more that do it, the merrier, and the more that I could meet, even better.
And I just want to say this to you, to all the people that have reached out to me on Instagram, Twitter, through the chats. Everybody knows that I deal with, mental illness types of thing, anxiety, depression. I've been
Mhm.
out of work for like a month or so.
Yeah.
It's a struggle that I've had, especially in my later years, right after my dad passed away.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like my only escape to deal with people without actually dealing with them close. And it's kind of
Right,
like the
right.
perfect, it's kind of like the perfect thing. And I just appreciate like you've reached out, Beto's reached out, Luke. Uh, I can name a bunch of you guys. You guys have been super awesome. There's a lot of people that'll come on your channel and say, dude, I don't want to hear about your problems. Either talk about football or shut up. That's fine. You can
Right.
unsubscribe. Fact
For
is, we're
sure.
people. We have lives. People are here. Like Jesse has kids. I don't have kids, but I got my other, my own issues. The fact that people are really cool and it's been a really supportive situation. I'm glad I got into it, and I'm really, really excited. Hopefully, if I do go to a game that I run into you guys, I would love to run into Chapman. I'd love to run into Nick Newman. Niner. Oh, is that Nick? Is he
Niner
hit?
Nick.
He gets
Niner. Well, which Nick? There's Nick Newman,
Nick
and
Newman,
then,
the one who has the really energetic, angry takes, especially during this season.
oh, like his videos after the game.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's Nick Newman. Yeah, that's Nick
He's
Newman. He's a
I've
good guy
been
too.
I've been trying to get him on my channel, but it just hasn't worked. But one of these
Yeah.
days, he like you're pretty nice about that, man. If I asked some of the same questions to you that I would ask him, he would probably be like that chat would have just trickled to zero. So it's been a good one, man. Thanks for coming on.
Of course, brother. I appreciate it, man. Love to see you doing well. You're always very supportive of myself, and that's the other thing too. I want to throw out there. I always support all the other content creators, but not everybody reciprocates it. And you are a genuine good dude. You reciprocate it. I
Thank
see
you.
you throw out stuff on your channel out of nowhere, like, "Hey, go subscribe to these guys." And I think that that's fantastic, man. That tells me you're just a good stand up dude, and I appreciate it. I really do.
Same to you, man. I appreciate it. And until next time, everybody, stay safe and healthy, everybody. And as I always say to everyone, until next time, I'll see you guys on the flip side. See ya. End. End.